Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to listen to an interview that me and my buddies Latino Slant and Stone Loki did with Edward James Olmos. That's right, Cmdr Adama from Battlestar Galactica and Gaff from Blade Runner. This is like a childhood dream for me, so enjoy. First of all, Mr. Olmos, I'd like to say thank you for your amazing work. Certainly helped me out during some dark times, especially Battlestar Galactica. I would like to ask you a little bit about the Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, which I thought was an excellent Western. I'm fascinated by the music. It has sort of a John Carpenter-style synth score integrated, and I love that. And I noticed you have writing credits for the music along with another person. So I would just like to ask you, who did what, and how did you come to integrate this sort of John Carpenter-style synth score into a Western? Because I thought that was a brilliant and unique choice.
Well, actually, it was during the era, it was 1981, and we had no money. So my friend Michael Lewis was a dear close friend of mine who had a synthesizer. And Herth Martinez, who is a good friend of mine since we were like 3 years old, 4 years old, who's a brilliant guitar player. May he rest in peace. He's passed away since this was, he passed away a couple of years ago. But anyway, it was just Herth, myself, and Michael. And Michael and I did the writing on the music, and it's pretty improvisational, and it was really geared more towards Chariots of Fire. Remember Chariots of Fire?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That sound school done by, I guess it was Jan Hammer, I think it was. That to me was very inspirational, and yet it was an old. They were in the 30s, I guess, during the Second World War, right before the Second World War, that movie takes place, and it worked. And I said, you know what, let's go synth all the way, man. Instead of trying to, find musicians to come and help us and do that whole thing, I said, I got a great guitar player, and I called Herth, and I said, Herth, can you help me? And I had a wonderful friend, David Anderley, who has passed away also, but he used to be the head. He used to head A&M Records, and he was really a great producer. He produced some great music, and we produced together in the 60s. And I had been playing music since 1960, and I played a little keyboard, played a little bit of guitar, and I used to sing and write and everything. So I was into music. And so in 1981, so Michael Lewis and myself got together, and we started the scoring of the movie, and it just locked in. And we used the ballad, and of course the original ballad done by Dr. Americo Paredes, who wrote the book with a pistol in his hand, where was the original understanding of the corrido, and that was his doctoral thesis. And so he wrote a little book, and the book was mainly about, I'd say 30 pages out of the whole book of maybe 180 pages, 170 pages, was about the man. The rest of it was about the corrido and what it meant to the culture and how it was formed, where it came from, and how the corridos were so important to our culture, the Latin culture, but especially the Mexican culture along the border. And so that being said, I asked if we could use his rendition of it. So that's the one you hit the very beginning of the movie, and at the end of the movie, it's his rendition. And then we got into it and started, using the chord changes and using the situation to some melodies from there, and started to augment them and use them throughout the piece itself, and connected it with the driving sound of synthesized sound. And to me, it works real well. And to this day, it even works better, because now this movie is quite unusual, to be honest with you guys. It's in the National Registry of Film, and they just accepted Selena. And I got that information a month ago. And but right now, the ballad is in there, and it is been hailed by the United States Historical Society, which really controls all of the facts of our history as a people in the United States of America. The United States Historical Society proclaimed it to be, this movie proclaimed it to be the most authentic Western ever made. And they said that it's the only dramatic piece of film, or else fictional film, it's a drama, that they would consider to be documented fact. And they didn't even do it for Reds. Warren Beatty wanted to have Reds have this kind of accolade, this kind of understanding that it was so well constructed and so well understood that it was actually documentation of the things that went on during that period of time, during the Russian Revolution. And but in our case, we didn't ask for it. We got the call and telling us that they had seen a movie and that they considered it to be the most authentic Western ever made in the history of film. To this day, it still holds that accolade, and I'm very proud of that film. I think it's, to me, it's the best usage of film. And I've done some to Stand and Deliver, American Me, Mi Familia, Selena, Walk Out, you name it, and we've done a lot of work on film. And but I think that the Ballad of Gregory Cortez is truly one of a kind, and it does merit that understanding. And not that the other, look at Selena's fantastic. American Me is very powerful, very strong. And Stand and Deliver is one of the most viewed films ever viewed and ever used in the history of film. More people have seen that one than almost any film ever made, because of the fact that they use it every year. Tens of thousands of teachers use it in their classroom to motivate and inspire the students. And that's been going on for almost 40 years. And so basically, the Ballad to me is the finest film, the usage of film I've ever done in my life. And so you've picked a time and a place for us here in 2022. And you guys, the Latino Slant is definitely on time to bring to light something that to me, you're bringing to light to a lot of people who have never even seen it. It's made in 1980.
Yeah. Correct. Especially an Edward James Olmos film on Doom. They'll think Battlestar Galactica first, or Stand and Deliver, especially from our community. But in this film, I just saw it again. Criterion, great job.
Yeah.
God, it's really emotional. It's really, but besides everything you just said, Mr. Olmos, it's incredibly emotional. It's deep. It's a deep story, and it's just how you guys were telling. But Loki had, funny that you said that about Stand and Deliver, because Loki's got a great question for you.
About 30 years ago, my father retired from the U.S. Navy. He was a pilot. He was a S-3A Viking pilot. He flew jets off of carriers, and he decided to retire after 20 years. And he sat us all down and said, I'm going to go back to college and I'm going to become a teacher. And I didn't understand at first. I said, how can you go from flying jets off of aircraft carriers to being a teacher? And a couple of days later, I asked him that question, and we sat down that night and we watched Stand and Deliver. It was the very first time I'd seen that. You are the reason why I know how to multiply by 9 so easily as well, sir. But did you ever, the finger man, are you the finger man? I'm the finger man. I can I multiply by 9. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite part in the entire movie. But did you ever imagine that through film, through your art, through your craft, that you would inspire so many people? He played that movie, like you said, he played that movie every year for his kids. He played that movie every year for 15 years while he was teaching for his kids. Did you ever imagine you would inspire someone like that?
No, because emotionally I say that because I'm crying right now. It's an understanding. We are born to die. In between, you got to fill it with happiness. That's the only thing life asks of you. Just be happy. And it's hard. It's hard to be happy. There's just so much of life that gets in the way. and we allow it to get in the way. And all of a sudden, something happens. And there's a moment in time when it's like what they say, catching lightning in a bottle. It's impossible. And yet, here you go. We did it. And that movie is one of a kind, just like the ballad, Stand and Deliver is one of a kind. And believe me when I tell you, that film has inspired, motivated not only the students, but the teacher. I can't imagine being a teacher and playing that song, that movie for my students before the school year starts, and play for them, or through the school year sometime, and they play for them, and then have to get in front of that group of kids and teach them. After they see what this teacher could do and did, and how he did it, and how he motivated, and how he inspired them, and how he became not only a teacher, he became a life force of understanding for them. Because mathematics is a language. It's like French or German or, Polish. It's just Japanese or Chinese. It's very, very, it's good for us in understanding. It's, critical thinking is the most important aspect, one of the most important aspects of the brain. And it enhances us as human beings to the fullest. It gets the best usage of our mind going. That and music are connected even. But this guy, Jaime Escalante, inspired teachers all over the world, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And we did that movie. And when we're doing it, we did it for like 1.2 million. Matter of fact, that was the same budget that we did for the Ballad of Gregorio Cortez. And that had like 1,500, it had 150 horses, 5,000 wardrobe changes. We went to 3 states of the Union, New Mexico, Colorado, and Texas. We had period cars, period trains, and we did it for 1.2 million. And that's really inexpensive, even then in 1981. This was done in 1988, the Stand and Deliver, and that was 1.2 million also. And we did it in 24 days. And it was wonderfully done. And again, the beauty of Stand and Deliver is the story, Loki. The story is what grabs you. And then, of course, we brought it to light because everybody rose to the level of expectation, and you couldn't do anything less than that. That's part of the movie. And Jaime Escalante was at my side every minute of every shot that I ever did for that movie. He was there. And he would be standing like this and be watching me. Then I'd finish the scene and he'd go, really too much. And I knew that if he gave me the thumbs up, that I had done it well, and then we could go on, And it was amazing. It was a blessing, and your father is a blessing. What an inspiration that movie has been to not only your dad, but to a lot of teachers have come up to me and said, I saw your movie Stand and Deliver when I was a kid, and I wanted to be a teacher. And I want to thank you for that movie. And I go, thank you for your life. You have literally he crossed. I mean, at one point, your father was a brilliant, he had to be an engineer. In order to be a fighter pilot and landing on aircraft carriers, you got to be really together. You have to understand math, high intent. And you have to understand all there is to be a lieutenant, colonel, to fly these jets and land them. And so for him to decide, like you said, to go back to school and get his education degree so he can turn around and teach after he retired from being an Air Force pilot or naval pilot, it's like amazing. So yeah, Loki, I got to tell you, that movie inspired your father, and it's inspired many kids all over this world, and especially in this country, and especially Latinos. Oh man, it's like a glass of water in the desert. That's all I can tell you.
You have inspired people as well, just like Jaime Escalante.
Well, yeah, I performed the piece. I made that character come to light, Loki. But if imitation is the highest form of flattery, I imitated that man to the finest ever. That was not me. That was me seeing him the way he worked, and then me taking that and doing it exactly as I saw him. And my expertise is duplicating human behavior. And I can do it. And I can do my own sense of what it is, or I can see somebody else do it and I can duplicate it. And bringing truth to the moment inside of a performance. But the real deal, that guy did it. I mean, that was truth at the highest level. Just like the Ballad of Gregorio Cortez. That was truth to the highest level. And that's why it's so sad. And the older it gets, the better it gets. Both movies. Both films are better now than they were the day we finished them. One in 1987, we finished Stand and Deliver. And 1981, we finished the Ballad, but it didn't come out till 1983. And Stand and Deliver came out in 1988.
Mr. Olmos, in regards to Gregorio Cortez, there's other quote unquote banditos of that before him, all including him, which inspired Zorro and the Batman, Joaquin Murrieta, Vasquez. Would you like to see some of those other heroes or legends on the big screen? I mean, they're part of California history, part of the United States history. What's your feeling on that?
You must be channeling a great understanding of what's coming. We're in the processes right now doing Joaquin Murrieta.
Oh, really?
I'll be directing it. Yeah. And
wait, you're probably directing that?
Yeah.
Did you just? Wow.
Wow.
Very, very, very Undoomed. It is an amazing journey we're about to take. And it's not that it's a big explosive story. It's where Zorro comes from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Zorro came from Joaquin Murrieta and Vasquez, Tiburcio Vasquez. And those two characters make up the legendary Zorro, because the guy who wrote Zorro back in the beginning of the 20th century.
1919.
19 when?
1919, The Curse of Capistrano.
It's when Zorro that was written?
That's when it came out, was 1919 or 1920. It was published.
Yeah, 1919. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, you got it. I thought it was early in 1906, 1907, but it's cool. 1919.
Right.
Because I'm just trying to add up.
It was up there.
Yeah, because, basically the story of Joaquin Murrieta is going to be something that people will be very happy that we did it. And we're going to do it with the same flavor that we've got in the Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, with the same aesthetic. And
Nice.
It won't be a blockbuster at the beginning, but hopefully, because it'll be streaming. So I think people will start to learn about it and get to see it. Millions of people see it because it'll be streaming on one of the streamers. I don't know which one we're going to use yet, but
I have no idea when I asked this question.
I know you're hopefully wishing that we would make more movies like that. I've been trying to do Tiburcio Vasquez since 1979 when I did Bandido for Luis Valdez up in Teatro Campesino. I created Tiburcio Vasquez on stage.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was A. Martinez.
A. Martinez did it at the
PBS or something.
No, he did it. They eventually did it.
Right.
He did it originally on stage at the Mark Taper. I created the role at the Teatro Campesino. Gotcha. And after I created it, I went off and I was doing other work, and then he got A. Martinez to play him on the stage, and then they went on to complete and do the rest of it again. But this Joaquin Murrieta is a little different. It's a sad, tragic story, and a true story. And he's a true bandido. With Gregorio Cortez, he wasn't a bandido.
Right. Cortez was mistaken. Correct.
They said he was a gang guy, but real quick they found out that, not real quick, but after 600 Mexicans were killed by the Texas Rangers in a matter of a few weeks. Okay, that's real tragic. We didn't emphasize that understanding. We just knew that we showed that they were just killing randomly.
Yeah.
Mexicans everywhere.
Yeah, that was not. Yeah, that was. I'm sorry. The storytelling was done very well. I think if that was made today, I think it would have been like just a little hammered too much, heavy-handed.
Maybe. Depends on who's making it.
That's true, sir. You're absolutely right. But either way, it did happen.
Yeah, it did. It's a true story.
And
with, Stand and Deliver and Selena,
right?
American Me.
If you have a couple of more minutes, we'd love to ask a couple more questions. If that's okay with you. Undoomed, I think has another one for you.
Sure. So, Mr. Olmos, I understand that you came up with city speak or gutter talk in Blade Runner that your character Gaff uses. How did you go about creating a believable language like that? Did you just go out and buy a bunch of dictionaries, or did you employ a linguist, or how did that work?
The year was 1980, and when they asked me to come in and talk with Ridley Scott, and I did Zoot in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
February 14th of 1978, we opened on the Mark Taper stage in Los Angeles. And it was immediately an overwhelming success. And just like people were unbelievably moved by the piece. And my character especially came to light. El Pachuco became, now it's an integral part of our culture. And the Pachucos from, the Armenian Pachuco came out, and the Italian Pachuco came out, and they used to, each culture had their Pachuco.
Right.
Pachuquismo was an attitude. It was that they wore their pride, their self-esteem and self-respect as a shield in front of them, so that you couldn't see anything other than that. Which is nothing wrong with that, except that life is much more getting to know somebody by understanding how the vulnerabilities and who they are as people, and how much they give and take. And with the Pachuco, you get deeper than what you see. And if you want to, you look at me, you better be understanding that. Why are you looking at me? The question goes right back to the person that was looking at them. So, what are you looking at? Ese, ¿qué tú quieres? Huh? What is it? Ese? And right at your conflict, you're in conflict immediately. And so anyway, I had done Pachuco, and I got asked to do an indigenous Mohawk Indian First Nation person. And I turned it down at first. And I told the director, he came to me when I was doing Zoot. He says, I got this movie that I really need you for. And it's called Wolfen. And I said, listen, man, you want me to play a Mohawk Indian? The script is superb. Everything's wonderful. Go out and find yourself a Native American. I said, go out and find yourself a Mohawk, a real one. Go to New York, find yourself a Mohawk and bring him in and give him the job. And I said, and if you don't find him, if you can't find an indigenous person, come back to me, but we're going to go to the American Indian movement, AIM. We're going to go to AIM, and all the chiefs of all the nations in the United States are part of AIM. And I want you to get a meeting with them, and I want to go in front of them, and I want them to sanction me to do this role for them. Because I'm an Indian. I'm an Indian. I mean, I'm a Native American I'm a Native. I'm a First Nation. I'm a Yaqui, Maya Mexica, Azteca person. I come from all of that indigenousness in me, and I've been here for 40,000 years, man. So yes, I have European roots. Yes, I do, and that's the only way you become Mexican. You get European and the Native Americans and the Native and First Nation people, and they combined together and they created the Mexican. That's what the Mexican. Right. That's una mezclada. So that being said, went ahead and they finally got me clearance, and I went ahead and did that role. Well, Ridley heard about it, and Ridley calls me up and says, "Hey man, I'd like to have you work with me." And I said, oh, really? You know, it'd be an honor, because I'd seen his Duelist. I'd seen other movies. He had done 2 movies by that time. And the Blade Runner was the next one. He was a brilliant production designer. That's really what his forte was. He was a great director because he had directed many television commercials, but his real true gift was in production value. And you could see it in every movie he made. Right. And so that being said, he asked me, and I said, you know, I would like to do this film with you. And I said, I really would, because it was a small role. It was I walk in, I go find Decker. I take him to go see the captain. I take him around to look for the guides, and then I'm gone till the end of the movie. And it really was like a glorified, walkthrough. And there was no depth to the character. And I said, I'll do this for you, but I want to do something. If you want me to do this, I'll only do it on one condition. I want to speak 10 languages. I want to be a multicultural person, so that in 2019, this was 1980, and we're talking 2019, that's 40 years. And I said, in 40 years, LA is going to look like this. It's going to be Asian, Latino, African, Caucasian, and languages up the gazoo, indigenous, everything's going to be here. And all of the cultures are going to be like mixed together. And a police officer goes and there's a robbery in Beverly Hills, and the guys take off and they go into the Asian Koreatown. You're going to have the police officers are going to have to be pretty in tune with how to go ask questions about people that are in that looking for the robbers in Koreatown. And then they went from Koreatown to the African American section, South Central. And then from South Central, they went to East LA. And then from East LA, they went to the German sector. And so, or the Armenian sector. I said, and so the cop has to be able to communicate with the street people. So my cop in 2019 is going to speak like 10 languages. And he goes, well, what does it sound like? I say, well, it sounds like, hello, cabrón. He looks at me, he looked at me and said, what was that? I said, I don't know. There's a bunch of sound tones right now. I said, I have to go out and learn what I'm talking about. I have to learn it, but I'm going to call it city speak, and it's going to be real dialogue. And your dialogue that you have there, me saying, but I'm going to say it like 2 words in Japanese, 3 words in Armenian, 2 words in Italian, 1 word in French, and ending in Spanish. And I said, oh, shit. I said, yeah, just subtitle it if you want to. No, it doesn't really fucking matter. I mean, it doesn't matter at all. My character is not driving the plot. Right. I'm a character development character that helps you understand the lead character. Now, and of course, they put that they overdubbed that voice saying, narrative, talking about, city speak, and everybody spoke it. Bullshit. He didn't speak it. Nobody spoke it. I was the only guy that could speak that language. To this day, there's a few, I've run into quite a few people since I did that role over the last 40 years that actually speak 7 languages, 6, 7 languages. And they said, it was an interesting idea that what you did, because it worked, and I know that there's some groups of people just adore me because I used their language, in the movie. And so when they heard it in their part of the world, like the Hungarians love me. Right. When I use the Hungarian words that I use for them, they just adore me, and they just think, wow, oh my God, that's fantastic. But so, yeah, I created that Undoomed. I created it, and I was grateful for one thing. I was grateful that Ridley Scott was secure enough within himself to allow growth around him. Very, very, very interesting understanding that I got from that man. When I worked with him, and I had worked with another man, that's where I got it from. In 1977, Robert Young, I did Alambrista. And that was being able to work with him. I learned how, before I did Zutsu, I learned how to speak and not be a threat to the powers that be by asking a question or giving a suggestion and not being, hey, just do what's on the page, man, and don't ask any questions. And because that's how they usually treat you.
Right.
Everybody just do what's on the page, let's go. And don't ask, I ain't got the time to discuss this with you. Because you're a day player and you got one line. So stop asking questions. Sure. I was always saying, well, it's not that I'm asking questions to take up your time. I'm asking questions because I really need to learn and understand why you're putting the camera here. And boy, they'd get upset with me. So, boy, that time. Anyway, with Ridley, he was so secure that he allowed growth around him. And that's how I learned how to be a good leader. I learned that. I learned that from them and from Bob Young and from Ridley Scott, and the rest is history. I learned to listen. And not that I didn't have my own sense of balance. And I'm producing, I write, I produce, I direct, I act, and I understand the medium. And I was producing and directing and doing theater. And I was choreographer, and I did musicals, and I wrote the music for them. And so I was pretty well versed in the usage of the art form to storytelling in both theater and television and motion picture. So even though I didn't have a lot of experience, like seeing a television show, and they got me for one day's work, and I would take it. So I would go there and I'd ask a question, and that's when I get in trouble. But with Zoot Suit, everything changed. When I did El Pachuco, what changed was the respect that the industry and the people who were talking to me had for what I had created.
Right.
So therefore, I never had to audition for a role again after I did.
Wow.
They've really come to me and asked me, hey, can you help us do this?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's a very high honor in this industry not to have to audition for a part.
Yeah.
Well, you deserve it, sir. You have time for one more quick question?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Loki.
You very rarely today do you have a remake that lives up to the original product that came out. You walked on the set of Battlestar Galactica and took the original spot of a man named Lauren Green, who did a great job as Adama. But you came in, sir, and you said, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna hit the bully as hard as I can in the nose and make him think twice about coming after me again. And Eddie, you are Adama. You are Bill Adama. There's absolutely no question. Did you know when they were like, okay, we're gonna do this miniseries, it might lead to something? Did you have any idea when you walked on the set of Battlestar Galactica that you would be changing sci-fi forever because of your role as Bill Adama?
No, the Battlestar Galactica to me has become a centerpiece to the future of humanity. Because if you've seen it, you'll be able to handle nuclear holocaust. Because under any circumstances, whether you lose every single person you know, whether you've lost every single human being that you know, and there's only a few people left on the planet, you're going to have to keep going. You have to sustain and move forward and find your way. You're not, because if you hadn't seen Battlestar, you'll want to commit suicide. You won't want to live inside of this world.
Right.
Well, Mr. Olmos, thank you for all your time. I do have one final question back to the Ballad of Gregorio Cortez.
Sure.
He didn't do any subtitles.
No.
And I understood, and I really I appreciated now as an older adult, because I hadn't seen it in a long time. And as an older adult, I was like, this is beautiful, the way they're talking to each other, the way the Spanish is interwoven. And, but I'm Chicano, like it's different for me. Why wasn't there subtitles? And I know Loki and Doom, they got the gist of what was going on, but I'm just curious.
Well, the gist is what was needed. You didn't have to understand everything, just like what happened to Gregorio Cortez, until you see the story. You don't realize that it's a misunderstanding of one word that causes the largest manhunt in the history of Texas up to that point in time. It was 1901, and there was nothing like it. They were using telephones, they were using the railroads, they were using modern technology. These people who didn't speak Spanish were placed in the same position as our characters who didn't speak Spanish. And so they had to see the end of the story in order to really understand the full meaning of the movie. So when they get to the end and they see, Carlota comes into my, played by Rosanna DeSoto, she comes in and she translates to him and says, he wants to know if that's the reason that his brother's dead. And then the guy says, yeah, just tell him, they misunderstood the difference between yewa. And then she says in Spanish, he died because they didn't understand the difference between yewa and caballo. And kills Cortez, killed him. And just like that reality was. And everybody at that moment knows and understands the story. And that way, you that knew both languages knew all along what the trouble was. And so bilingual people were way ahead of the ballgame from the beginning. They understood exactly what was going on. And it was sad because you wrote it a different way than the people who were monolinguistic, whether just all Spanish or all English. Because few people saw the movie in Spanish that only knew Spanish, saw it that way. And they understood, the little that they got. But then when they got to that point of understanding inside the cell, what Gregorio Cortez understood, it's mind-boggling. It was so sad. I mean, come on, they killed over 600 Mexicans. Jesus, come on, they thought we were chasing a gang. It was one person, one guy on horseback,
Right.
And he was such a good horseman. And boy, how do you like that scene where the horse lays down so I can take, she was like, it was just beautiful. She was great. But we didn't know the horse was going to lay down. No one trained the horse to lay down.
Really?
Yeah, I just walked up and as I was walking forward, I'd been around horses before. I saw her pawing the dirt and I said, oh shit, this horse is going to lay down in the dirt.
Wow.
And so I'm taking the saddle off and I go, come on, you can do it. I took off the bridle. And as I took off the bridle, the horse went down. I said, oh, yes, oh, come on. Let's hold it right there, honey. And I'm talking to myself. And I walked up and I put the bit right into her mouth and then stood her up. And my director, got the shot of me jumping on board and riding off. And then he says, oh, man, I was hoping, because in reality, he fought the horse, jumped up on the horse and held on the horse and then got it to calm down and tame down. But my director was looking for that scene, I was hoping I didn't have to do that scene because I don't know if you've ever tried to wrangle a horse, a loose horse. It's really difficult, really, really difficult, especially if they get spooked. And, I didn't know the horse that well. So, but the horse went down and just like God sent it. And when it came back, I said, Bobby, you've just been touched by the Lord. You were given a gift. When you see it and you play it back, people are going to wonder, how in the world did you get the horse to go down like that?
Right.
That's a great scene.
It's a great, very, very good scene. And of course, that horse then rides with him. He saved his life and he jumped. Oh, she was great. It was great. I did all my own riding. It's really wonderful.
I'd imagine everyone did their own stunts in that film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We didn't have any stuff. But a lot of the riders, a lot of the people are real. A lot of those
Yeah, I heard the judge was real.
Yeah, the judge was a real judge of the court right there. That's how we got to use the court. He says, says, I've been waiting for you guys for over, 50 years, here. And he opened a drawer and there he had all of the transcripts and all of the trial.
Wow.
Cortez, and that's how we wrote the story. And he says, the only condition I have, would you please allow me to play the part of the judge? because it's a very important role. I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, because it was the first time they ever had interpreters in the federal courthouse ever in the history of the United States of America. Before that, they never had interpreters for any language.
Wow.
But whenever a person of whatever culture was being tried, they never knew what was happening.
I didn't know that.
No one did.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Nobody knew that. And
Well, the movie is called The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez. People, if you haven't seen it, rush out, order it. Criterion Collection. It's amazing. We're here with acting legend, writer, director, Mr. Edward James Olmos. It's been an absolute honor, sir.
It's my honor. Thank you so much for the incredible ability for people to understand the culture more and more. Latino Slant, the only way.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, Undoomed, thank you.
So say we all.
So say we all. And that's the end. And I'd like to thank Edward James Olmos for doing this interview. It's been like a childhood dream forever. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Furthermore, I'd like to thank the Latino Slant for making this possible. This could not have happened without you. You were the one who made this happen, and I'm so thankful. And I'd also like to thank Stone Loki for asking those amazing questions that seem to make even Mr. Olmos shed a manly tear. And that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.